Hey everyone, I'm your host Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and it's good to be back with you all. I haven't been live in a minute, I know, but I'm glad to be here with you today and to give this incredible powerhouse speaker coming to the stage. We are going to dive deep and ask the hard questions that we haven't been able to get answered up until now. You won't want to miss 1 second of what this powerhouse speaker has to say. Here we go. Hey everyone, I'm your host Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and today I have Senator Genevieve Whitaker coming to the Gentleman Style Podcast stage, and she is impactful. Miss Genevieve Whitaker was born and raised on the beautiful Virgin Islands, my home, where I was born. Oh my gosh, you have no idea what this is doing to me. In the beautiful Virgin Islands, she's surrounded and grew up with supportive educators all across the globe. Her family has been in education, the military, veterans, business owners, leaders, all over surrounding this young woman and inspiring this woman to push forward and ever achieve higher and higher goals. She has not one, not two, 4 degrees, a Bachelor of Arts in Government and World Affairs from the University of Tampa, a Juris Doctorate from Stetson University College of Law, a Master's degree in Political Management from the George Washington University, and of course, a Master's degree in Strategic Criminal Justice Management from Boston University. She also holds several certifications because she does not sleep. I don't think she sleeps, y'all. She is hard working. Two of these certifications stem from Oxford University School of Business and Harvard Kennedy School of Government having. So this woman is absolutely a powerhouse, lots of education, lots of knowledge, and couldn't be more prepared to stand on the Gentleman Style Podcast stage and lead the Virgin Islands into the future. And she's here. She's also a philanthropist, an activist, well-known public speaker, and a big advocate for the decentralization of the Virgin Islands. And she wants to fight for you, for me, and all her supporters and everyone that has stepped foot on the beautiful Virgin Islands. I can't hold this woman back any further. This woman is absolutely amazing, incredible. Help me welcome Senator Genevieve Whitaker. Ma'am, you're huge. What in the world?
What introduction?
You do not sleep. How? Where do you find the time for all of this?
Well, Marcus, and greetings to you from our home. Greetings to you from St. Croix, Virgin Islands, and greetings to all of those who are tuned in, of course, and will watch this after. From as you shared, and what a beautiful summary of my bio. Surrounded by love. I'm named after my grandmother, Genevieve Browne, who herself was a paraprofessional educator, and so from really, really young, I just really encouraged. I was really encouraged to just. Oh, my grandmother always said to me, "Just do your very best." And so that really stemmed into just throughout childhood, doing well in school, going on to college. And I was having that in mind. In fact, I tell folks I finished my college degree in 3 years, and that was at the age of 17, and deciding for myself how I would continue to really lay the footwork. And even though, of course, you think about a student completing the degree so quickly, but I was still able to have a good time. I was in part of different social groups, and I can tell folks I was even in a salsa club, and I did dance, and I played the piano. So a lot of things just making me well-rounded. So I thank my family, just my entire family circle, for being there for me even to this day.
I love that. And I forgot to mention, y'all, out of everything I just said, a heart of gold. And so that's incredible. I applaud you, Senator, for doing what you're doing and just pushing forward. Diving right in, because we want to get to the sauce. The people have asked and Gentleman Style Podcast is delivering. So I wanted to start with one of the biggest things you've been an advocate for in the Virgin Islands. You were a chair of the Education Committee with an agenda to change the school curriculum as it pertains to VI history being mandatory for elementary students and up all the way to high school. Why the focus on this? And did that get passed? That legislation get passed?
Excellent question. And that matter stems back to the year I was born in 1983, actually. One of my mentors, Senator Cleon Creaky, Maynard Cricket, she, along with Senator Adelwa Bryan, with the chief sponsors back in the 15th legislature of what's Act 4844. And essentially, through all this, this 39-year going to 40-year history, essentially the mandate for the teaching of Virgin Islands and Caribbean history from K to 12 has been a challenge. I worked through, because I also, in addition to all those, I've actually owned my own consulting company, the Whitaker Consulting Group, and I've done a lot of pro bono work in support of our nonprofits. And through that, I was actually helping the individuals, litigants, who were challenging the mandate. So as a senator now, I even drafted a letter of support for the litigants, but furthermore, I updated the code to really push for what is known as integration of history. So to push for the integration of Virgin Islands and Caribbean history. And the answer, yes. Just last week, as I prepared for this interview, I just learned actually just yesterday and going into my various bills and to find out the status of and I am happy to report that we now have Act 8684, which now mandates that Virgin Islands and Caribbean history be integrated into the curriculum from kindergarten to 12th grade. And so it did in fact pass. The governor signed it last week. And so the next step is yes. And I really appreciate those claps because there was some opposition to it. And Marcus, in crafting legislation, it was not done in a vacuum. I had also co-founded and I'm the president of the Virgin Islands Youth Advocacy Coalition, and that I have a lot of affiliations with local, national, international groups who are pushing for curriculum reform. And integration is where our country, the United States, is leading. As you see now, even they're pushing for African American history in our schools, integration.
So very significant, very important, and congratulations again. Another round of applause, y'all. That's big that we focus on our history, because if we don't look at our history, we can get a clear indication on what we want to do and what we don't want to repeat history. That's very important. So congratulations again, Senator.
Thank you, and thank you for and thank you for I thank my elders, especially Senators Adelwa Bryan and Cleon Creaky, who are still alive, for for their vision and foresight. And I'm standing on their shoulders and other individuals who push this forward.
Absolutely. What else did you want to accomplish? What else is on your bucket? I want to say bucket list, but what else is on the list? Any other legislation that you'd like to get passed?
Great, and just to highlight, I actually crafted the most amount of education legislation because one of the things I was focusing on was curriculum reform. So I am working with senators in the 35th legislature, especially those who first worked with me in the 34th. I was pushing for marine environmental science, some kindergarten to 12th grade, not necessarily integration, but the teaching of it from even as preschool eventually. And I also pushed for school accountability, getting our parents and students and administrators more involved with the annual effort to present what is known as a school accountability report to the legislature. And these are all bills, Marcus and listeners, that both even the media joined in pushing against me. But we would have, for the entire time of the legislature, and especially in the early parts of our legislatures, right, Marcus, they made several amendments and updates to the curriculum, and this is done throughout the United States. This is done throughout the world. So what was telling for me, Marcus, was my colleagues push against that, right? The media joining, which is why history is so important to be taught, because within history, that is identity, but that is also understanding civics, which would also make those understand the importance of what I was trying to do. And there were others as well, bilingualism. And so, and then in terms of what I am pushing for as my platform, I always push for economic development. legislation to help our small businesses to remove various barriers. Act number 8559, which was actually sponsored by Senator Donna Fred Gregory and the 34th Senate President. And within that legislation was one of my bills I was preempted on, concerning removing a barrier for our small business owners to be able to participate in the economic development program. Naturopathic medicine, I really believe in that. There was an amendment to a law that was passed in 2000 and essentially 2001, and essentially my measure worked to update and to update the code, so to provide a pathway for that type of care, because our law actually didn't speak to a lot of the new guidelines and so on that's required, as well as establishing a naturopathic board. Unfortunately, as I learned also in preparing for this interview and learned, just last week, the governor signed, he actually did veto my naturopathic board legislation bill, but I was successful months back in the passage of the expansion of naturopathic medicine. Also, this support of our elderly and disabled was establishing what's known as the Disability Integration Unit. I worked really well with Senator Blyden on that one, and we were successful in the last session. And so that was a recent measure that was passed and signed last week by the governor. And there are others, and that I will continue to work on. When we speak about, and I also want to make a point to Marcus before we go on, that one of the measures that I pushed for was the repeal of a matter involving a zoning change in the West End and in the area of Prosperity. And it's the Rum Distillery Repeal Act, which I was successful in passing 8614, and that was because of my fervent concern in the manner that it was done. But I think the people of the Frederick said have endured enough. They went through so much through back in 2001, and with the whole issue of the emissions stemming from Woodland Train. Even they also said it was attributed to some of our basically our waste system, and so there were some issues also which involved the Waste Management Authority that impacted the West. And so so it was really, it's really, and I was also encourage everyone to go to GenevieveWhitaker.com, and you can go to legislations, and there you'll find I have several measures that I pushed for, and we'll continue to update as we update the latest set that was approved by the governor.
So much more work to be done. Much more work.
Yes, yeah, a lot more work to be done. There was even a measure that I was working with Peter Bailey to recognize Irma Maria Week. And so there's a ton of others that I hope to, and finally, I learned also too that possibly my naturopathic medicine, in addition to the naturopathic medicine board being vetoed, that also my effort to establish mobile healthcare, because way back in the days we used to provide regular healthcare to some of our elderly facilities, and that was pushed out. That no longer is at the same level. And one of the individuals I'm seeking to honor, Mrs. Jacqueline Greenwich Payne, who was an EMS, her and I really pushed and championed that effort for her to have an actual unit, but also furthermore for us to expand the mobile healthcare, and sadly that may have been vetoed as well. So that's something that I hope to continue to push for.
Absolutely. Ms. Genevieve Whitaker. We have to go to a quick commercial break. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I'm Marcus Norman, bringing fresh vibes to hot topics surrounding culture, relationships, business, finance, sex, dating, faith, and everything in between. Whether you're into passive income opportunities, trending topics and useful relationship tips, or dynamic guest speakers, there's something for everyone. You can expect all that and more every week. If you're down with this content, then consider joining our growing community by subscribing to Gentleman Style Podcast and smash the bell to get on our VIP list. Your support means the world. Thanks for watching. Link to my channel.
to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and we have the incredible Senator Genevieve Whitaker on the show today, and she's helped spilling the tea. We broke down where she's come and where she's grown up, what she's currently doing, and where she has to go. If you missed any of that, go back, scroll back, and check her out. She is a true force of nature. And one of the bills that Ms. Whitaker, you mentioned that you're interested in getting passed, deals with mobile medical services. But the thing that sticks out, the Department of Licensing where does the Virgin Islands stand when it comes to making significant progress in other areas and rebuilding other infrastructure like the hospitals and the schools and other things when federal funding has been provided? Where is the move and the push for those things as well?
Great questions. And so I'm going to start off with the schools, and I definitely want to let you know that the impediments to the rebuilding of our schools has a lot to do with our FEMA relationship. Marcus, you're familiar with Katrina, correct?
Correct.
Hurricane Katrina and the impact of New Orleans.
That was terrible.
Yes. So the FEMA we knew who were supposed to help the people of New Orleans is the same FEMA today. So there's really little to no change. I would definitely argue, and I submit to say that the Department of Education has gone through a very long journey of the process. And so I myself had meetings with the FEMA director, along with the Office of Disaster Recovery Director, and all that. That was all part of my efforts to get to the answers. Why I held several hearings and had all those internal meetings. There were numerous. By the time my first week in office, I had already engaged with the Commissioner of Education then. And then all around this time, I already had worked on completing my school tours, and then my hearing would be like in next week, and that was back in 2021. So with that is now we do in fact have the framework. In other words, the Department of Education has put in all the plans, everything, and we will have our first school to be built is going to be the Arthur Richards Junior High School. And that is slated, set to be built, and then the other schools will be continue to be built after. And it really is about our federal relations, and that's why we have continue to work with our Congresswoman Plaskett to see how we could overcome these because when you talk about schools and the broken nature of schools, you would hope for a much quicker turnaround process by way of rebuilding. And so I really have faith in the current commissioner, Commissioner Wells. I do foresee continuing, because she was actually in the position, the person who did all those various public assistance grant, all those grants through FEMA for the Department of Education. And I give you an example. When we did one of the tours, it was revealed that FEMA even had pushed back on their planning for our schools being brought up to ADA standards. So there's a lot of issues. The hospital now. That has gone through so many, iterations. When I went on the tour, when I was in the 34th, and when I went on the hospital a few different times, another time was actually the morgue crisis that we faced. I went there with that effort regarding the state of the morgue. But with the rebuilding of the hospital overall, it's again through that laborious, process with the federal government. And so that really goes to skill development and capacity building, but also to our federal relations, kind of some of these barriers to our success. And the housing authority. We have the Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority that has all of the community development block grant. They are the ones who fiduciaries for that. And I was very disappointed actually that in the case of workforce development, most of the money was given to one provider who, as we speak right now, is looking for employees to just assist with that. But instead of the money really being directed to our school system, our career and education system, where the money would have been better spent, and even would have helped our small business owners, where we would provide funding to them in the apprenticeship space. And so those kind of things are happening as well, where we have the money, we've spent it. We've not spent it properly in the sense of, you don't, put all your, eggs in one basket and think that you're going to get any real results. And so through investigative actions on my part. As a chairman of community education, I dealt with the entity, brought them before the committee several times. And I'll even submit, even when I brought them before the committee, there was not that seriousness about all my colleagues in order to push that forward. So when we're dealing with individuals, we have to have that sense of unity, and they take advantage of that. But you'll see now, so as you follow the story and the money, you'll see, and I continue just to sit back now and see what is going to be done, because there's really in workforce, I've not seen a lot of movement. The hospital, I keep on hearing about dates of it being open. And that's why I hope to see soon that there will be a hearing regarding the status of the hospital from the 35th Legislature. And just piggyback real quick on housing. The Virgin Islands Housing Authority, now you have the Housing Finance Authority, but you have a separate entity known as the Housing Authority. They actually have a very expansive plan to build thousands of homes in the Frederiksted area. They have the plan, but not the money. And who's holding the bag of money? The Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority. And so that is also
why sit on the money? What's
And that's a question really for the Housing Finance Authority to ask, and that has been asked of them many times. And so, Marcus, what we go to is capacity again. You asked, do I sleep and why did I prepare myself to become a senator? Well, there's a preparation effort to be able to, so we have different departments and individuals who need to build a particular capacity. And that's why you really should see it. I mean, I really submit that commissioner directors should continue, and if they don't have the capacity, they should have professional development. There should be a way to build a capacity, or just simply put, you put the right people in the right positions so they can get the work done.
Absolutely. I wanted to focus on, because you said put the people in the right position, I wanted to focus on your office. Your office has had some turnover in there. And why the turnover in your office? Is it because of people not in the right position? What's happening there?
Thank you for that question, Marcus. And so, when first off, senators, hiring and letting go, and it happens throughout the legislature. In fact, in 34th, other senators had turnover as well, but it just seemed to be a highlight in my office, especially because, and I would say, especially because I hired a lot of staff. Because my whole point about helping my people and making sure we have constituent efforts and everything going, because I learned that a lot of folks, weren't really being helped. The legislature has changed a lot in terms of constituent assistance and things of that nature. And then there was a misnomer about who left and who. I essentially terminated a couple people who did not do the work, right? And then several individuals, I had several individuals who worked for my office. Number stayed with me from the very beginning. I have individuals who've been with me from the very beginning and continued the work. In fact, I had a person who went from part-time to full-time who was actually doing some of those full-time staff work, and they were making double their salary, but they were filling in for their work and things of that nature. So it has to do, Marcus, it has to do with Marcus. It has to do with work ethics. And there was a decision in the late 80s for a legislative decision to get rid of our merit system. So we see it play out now. I have so many examples, and Marcus and listeners, if you hire somebody to do a job and you find yourself routinely doing your staff's work over and over again, or if you're engaging with a constituent matter and you're the one having to draft a letter, send a response and all this, what would you do in that particular case? So I hired people to assist me to help the people of St. Croix. And then I furthermore invested in them because I believe in professional development. So they all had opportunities for which I laid out. Here's how you can build up your skills in this particular area. Checklists, training, retraining, showing by examples. Because again, many times I did it on my own. Because when something is not getting done, I have to do it. The people elected me to do the work. And I cannot say, well, I'm not going to do this because staff that I hired is not doing it. And respect goes a long way. And I take that very seriously. And so really and truly, as I explained to them, because a lot of them were also of the younger generation, my generation is a millennial, I explained to them and gave them examples of when I was a legislative staffer. and how you interact with the center. How do you help and how you be a part? And then some, decide, well, I no, I can't dedicate any time after hours, or I can't dedicate extra time to help any constituents because, and it's because of lack of understanding. So we have to raise the bar for what it is to be a legislative assistant. And I love the fact, and Marcus, I'll give you a good example. The one of the organizations that's dedicated to staff development, which is known as, which is a National Conference of State Legislators. My staff was the only legislative staff to attend that particular conference, where they learned about the day in the life of staffers, being a staffer, and what it is, and hearing from senators and so on, and really getting a sense of what it is. So my biggest effort is to restore the level of capacity, restore the level of assistance to constituents, knowing how to work on legislation, is to build capacity. We are going in a direction where we're just slowly destroying ourselves, and who hurts are the very constituents that elect us. Because when the work doesn't get done, and you don't have the right people to do the work, we all suffer.
That's fair. That's fair. Thank you for breaking that down. Thank you for breaking that down and explaining that to the. You're right. If they're not doing the work, you can't turn to the people and say, well, this partner or this staff member didn't do it. It has to get done. That's not a tolerable answer. So you're right. So I appreciate you that sharing.
Yeah,
Um,
and you don't just say stuff like, I haven't fought in a long time. Just like, excuse me, I have never in my life, and any person I've ever been hired by, paid for work, volunteer. If I had a disagreement with them, whatever, get in that point where I'm ready to be physical with them. That is just unheard of, and those are the kind of things I didn't tolerate, or the this despicable texts. No, you can have a disagreement with your boss, and there's a proper way to handle it, but disrespect is unnecessary. So, and that's why I continue to stay high when people were going really low.
Absolutely, absolutely. Speaking of staying high, you did not make it again. You didn't get selected to run again. Will you run again? The people want to know. Will you run again?
Yes, I definitely will run again. One of the things that I also prepared for was becoming a senator. So now, of course, my degrees and everything, and my work experience, but also I spent a good 10 years through political boot camp trainings, and I know there's so much work that's yet to be done. And I feel for my constituents, because I assisted hundreds and hundreds of constituents. I had a whole field operations. I had several projects as it pertains to our WAPA crisis. Several. I served on the Public Service Commission, you know, and all these that I know that I'm not sure will continue to be done, absent my participation. So in a sense, being the driving force for certain actions. I'm also very happy to say that I helped to restore the Youth Commission with, that was another law that was, that I worked on, that is all my colleagues, supported, which is great, and the governor, to finally move forward with the Youth Commission, and that was also disbanded in the late 80s, around the same time we disbanded the merit system.
What What do you feel is the reasons why you didn't get reelected?
Well, the reasons I attribute it, I go back to my efforts for there to be a greater understanding of civic engagement, right? The reason why there's more of an acceptance of the lack of, well, whether it's constituent support, or the understanding of the role of the legislature, is a lot of the reasons also attributed to my loss. And then also to the media played a role. Marcus, really and truly, and listeners, I had all these things I've done, even establishing a youth agriculture project, which took a good while to put through, and several efforts visiting farms and all of that, right? So really that is part of it, and then also the smear campaign, right? Kind of has some kind of attribution to that, where these disgruntled former staff got together. And persons with the, because this also melee drives our community in terms of persons getting the actual facts, right? that doesn't happen. So the same way we're not getting the facts about who to elect, we're also getting misinformation about who we should not elect. So, and then also to making sure I get out. So when I broke down my numbers, I also look at demographics. I need more support in the west end of the island, actually. That's where some of my votes, where because I lost by 284 votes, I lost at the seventh position. And basically, working now towards gathering that support and doing my best, and also, having to rise above our local media, because they were also part of making sure not to share it in my press releases, a lot of my stuff, here and there, but not the same way they will share other senators' information.
Absolutely. We have to go to one more. Thank you, Senator Whitaker. Thank you for breaking that down. I'm glad to hear that you're not giving up. And like I shared in your bio, you don't strike me as someone that's giving up. As a lawyer, that I think that's kind of beaten into your head that you don't give up, you don't quit. And so I appreciate you not giving up, and you've taken the demographic, you've taken the data, you've analyzed it, and you've made a path forward. And it's not the end, right? You're still here and you're still charging, and there's more work to be done, like you clearly laid out in the beginning. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
We have one quick commercial break, y'all. Don't go anywhere. We gotta pay our constituents. Get those bills paid. We'll be right back.
Are you a local business looking to offer your customers easy access to cash without having to travel miles? We're here to help. At Norman Legacy Investments, we provide free ATMs with free installation that provide a suitable investment for your business. Even better, we offer you some profit sharing and handle everything from start to finish. Just reach out to us today to schedule a free consultation.
We are back, y'all, to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. We have Senator Genevieve Whitaker on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and she's breaking down her current run from story to where we are today. And if you've missed any of that, she's answering the hard questions. And speaking of questions, we have a question from our audience member, Jamali Douglas. He asked a question. Are you okay with answering questions from the audience, Ms. Whitaker?
No.
Absolutely. So Jamali Douglas asked the questions. What were some of your campaign missteps?
Thank you for the Jamali. I wouldn't say there were campaign missteps, because I really followed, when you look at campaigning, knocking on doors, pushing my message, doing a lot of radio interviews. And I run a grassroots campaign. So unlike, the average candidate, I'm not able to put money towards, a lot of these really expensive ads on our, whether it's newspaper and all those things. But I pushed a lot through social media. I would just say, as I'm going forward, now that I have better understanding of where the demographics were, I have to convince and to push for, is really reaching out, especially to that group. But what was interesting in the West End is that I've done a lot of constituent work throughout the whole island of St. Croix, and I've done a lot of, I did, even though there were individuals who were elected who they attributed to being from the West, a lot of my constituent matters also were helping individuals in the West. So it's just really about spreading a message much further.
Absolutely.
And getting to those voters.
Any push to push your campaign to the other islands and the smaller islands, St. Thomas, St. John, those other islands? Does that help the numbers at all? Or probably not.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of persons who live on St. Thomas and St. John and vice versa, and St. Thomas, so it's really, they have family, electors here on St. Croix. And so, yeah, you push, and that's why I have constituents, who don't necessarily vote for me, but they're still my constituents that I represent. When I'm elected, I represent the entire Virgin Islands. So yeah, that does help, getting persons, hey, so-and-so, vote for them, and that has helped as well. I definitely have one of my cousins, in fact, she lives now in St. Thomas, and she was really pushing for support for me.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And great question, Jamali Douglas. We appreciate it. Thank you for asking the question. This is huge. This is big. I want to talk to I want to address another question that I was able to panel up and work up from people who currently reside in the Virgin Islands, because I'm in Virginia. Y'all, I haven't been home in a minute, but I miss home. I'm coming home, I promise. One day, eventually. I need to come home. Well, Miss Whitaker, why isn't the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs so ineffective in protecting the people from exorbitant grocery prices?
Really good question. So the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs, they do in fact do regular engagements of, like when they go into the stores and they compare the prices and everything. But in terms of that protection, we of course now know that it's a raging war and that has impacted. And we had, other things, with the egg crisis, so, so every time there's some sort of crisis, of course, that would, that drives up the costs. I would submit, though, that when we look at the high prices in our grocery store, it has a lot to do with our lack really of a strong agricultural market. And so that plays a huge factor as well. Because for example, in the BVI, when as the egg crisis is really an issue right now, eggs are an issue right now. They had decided quite some time ago to have their own egg farms to support that. So the Department of Costa Rica can really ramp up its efforts for the pricing and what have you, but the control over when things go higher. So that really dovetails into to really addressing our food security. And agriculture is also one of the big areas why I had engaged with so many of our farmers, engaged with the party and was part of engaging and taking part in the town halls for the agricultural plan. So I say all that to say, the longer we could continue in this path where we don't have true food security, we will continue to see these high prices, as well as even the custom fees and all these stuff, which tie a lot into a lot of my actions and around the decolonization efforts. Because when people hear about decolonization, they don't see that as quality of, and it's true. They don't see it as that, and that, but that's not true. That it's tied to our quality of life. A lot of the structure we have around colonialism is tied even to how we're trading and how we are able to do what we need to do in our level of governance even. And so yes, I see and I myself, that's why I have a constituent as effort. I myself engaged Commissioner Richard Evangelista, in different gouging issues and so on and so forth, and he was very responsive. So we have to be more vigilant. And I was also working on an effort for a consumer board along with the LCA. So that's why I keep talking about getting back in, because these are some of the things that I was in fact working on, so that we can have structure around issues when there are crises, and the community which has a lot of solutions, and we can be part of making the situation better.
So you're advocating for pushing for better agriculture and getting local agriculture up and giving that a boost so that we can boost up the local economy and keep prices lower. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, definitely. Push that we have a greater person can actually go to more access to food that is grown right here on our island, and that would definitely drive down costs.
Absolutely. We got another follow-up question from Jamali Douglas. He asked, how much does the Jones Act affect the price on goods, if at all?
Well, no, what the Jones Act doesn't apply to the Virgin Islands. It actually applies only to Puerto Rico. And so, of course, it certainly affects them. We have a 6% customs tax, which mirrors, is exactly this, with 6% under, us being part of the U.S., and it was also 6% in the Danish West Indies. So it was just basically, here, boom, you guys are now 6%. There's no real rationale and everything behind it. It's just sort of and that's what we have colonialism. It's just here's 6%, y'all accept it. And that's why I'm pushing so hard for our civics and our understanding, so that we could push to make those kind of changes.
Absolutely. I love this. This is incredible, and this is what we need to hear the truth, right? Because there's so many rumors. You said it earlier that we love melee, right? I love melee in high school. That was kind of the thing. It was very prominent, and the easiest way is to put out negative press, right? Hold back the good press and then put out the negative press to kind of override and success. So great question, Jamali Douglas. Great, he's on fire today. I don't know what got into him. He had some coffee. But this is good. He asked
No,
the
those are
question
excellent
again.
questions.
If your goal is to help the Virgin Islands as a whole, why is there such a distinction between help for one side or the other?
Yeah. Well, I guess is he talking about? I don't know if he's talking about St. Croix versus St. Thomas, St. John, because that's something that has loomed a lot. I don't know if he means that, and if he's speaking to that, I guess he could respond as he's listening. One of the things that I'm very much involved in unifying the Virgin Islands. My youth organization, the Virgin Islands Youth Advocates Coalition, was literally put together. Main co-founders are from St. Croix, but the beginnings are all made up of Virgin Islands youth who are excelling. There's some who've come back, some who live away, and so I believe fervently in equality and equity. And that's why I'm also fortunate actually to have support. I have supporters and mentors, some of our great past leaders as well, who are from the entire Virgin Islands. And so my biggest thing is unifying. I'm a big promoter of unity. And
Not
that's why,
separating.
yeah, I don't believe, we all have our constituent base. We all have our individual issues. We have our island-based issues that the different islands experience. For example, we need hotels on St. Croix. And while I appreciate the fact that the governor in his last State of the Territory address talked about what hotels are being rebuilt and all this stuff, we need an actual newly built hotel. And so my effort continues so that we can have a hotel on St. Croix.
You're
I
talking
really,
about
really,
you're talking about Hotel on the Key, a newer hotel in that
yeah. No, I'm talking about building a whole new hotel. I
whole
respect
new.
we have different hotels are being rebuilt and a hotel on the Key and all these stuff, and that's happening, the rebuilding and fixing and everything, and that's excellent because that's going to bring definite rooms and jobs, and I'm excited about that. However, we're due and well overdue for actual hotel.
Absolutely.
And so I've been really working with investors with hotel, because the way it works also too, you have an investment company. Oh, good. And Jamali, good question. I wouldn't decide today if it would be west side versus east, because one at St. Croix, definitely, Jamali, yes, definitely St. Croix. St. Croix back in 1990, there was an effort. And a law passed to look at the equity between the island districts, right? About the matter of hotel development. And you have really and truly, you have way more hotel development in St. Thomas than you do in St. Croix. And there's even an effort right now for the National Park Service to approve the redevelopment of Canoe Bay and St. John, a hotel chain, a hotel company rather, who has not had to pay taxes on their land for many, many, many years. And so on St. Croix, we are well overdue for a hotel. And with that, I am going to continue that effort even outside of the legislature and with them as well in the case when it comes for any kind of legislative mandates.
To balance the equity between both islands.
Correct. To balance equity and to push for economic development in that particular space.
What caused it in the first place? How did we get so far off course? And is it
Definitely political leadership, absolutely political leadership. You have to have governor, legislature, senators, a community, right? There has to be that right assembly. And for whatever reason, through the years, one has been favored over the other. And also too, because we really refuse to move forward our land and water use plan through the Department of Natural Planning and Natural Resources, we've kind of been building helter skelters, throughout the Virgin Islands.
absolutely, absolutely. Ms. Whitaker, my question: what major milestone? Cause I want to push towards what we have accomplished and what we have achieved. What major milestones has this current administration achieved in the past 4 years?
Well, definitely there's been some huge areas. For example, our government employees retirement system. The governor, we worked along, with the Governor Bryan, and members of the 34th. We had a subcommittee on GRS that we've kind of staved off. We've, a few years to extend the life of GRS, and so that was a huge win. The other areas I would submit to in terms of the administration, I really, what I definitely see in the area of apprenticeships, I really commend the governor for moving forward with assisting our youth in opportunities to get into the government. I would submit, however, though, without the merit system that which I'm not gonna give up on that. Without a merit system, we're also gonna prepare our young people for a really bad pathway. Because because it's also what we're teaching our young people is sort of the concept about working but with a system without merit, and that's really problematic. That can really set that up. The other items I've seen huge wins in, gains. Just what I submit is there's some things that I wish to see more of. I can say that under his administration, there's been a more active workforce development board in the areas of, and some of his departments definitely have really still a lot of improvements. Look about BMV. That was really great how now going from hours and waiting or what have you to a few minutes, so things of that nature. So a lot of different things I could see as accomplishments and just improving government operations.
Absolutely. Miss Whitaker, this has been an epic episode. What advice would you give to my audience? What books do you read? What's a book that you recommend everyone purchase to kind of get their head in the game?
Well, thank you for that, Norman. And actually, the book that I would recommend, and I thought about this as I was preparing, this book right here, The New Jim Crow: Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness by Michelle Alexander. And the reason why I chose this particular book, which actually I cry through, as I cry through Selma, the movie Selma, which I finally watched. The reason why I mentioned this, Marcus, is because when we think about a lot of our young people, and even people not very young either, have somehow forgotten that the fight for us as people of color, we're continuing this fight. And there's some people who live their whole lives, even after slavery, and they were denied the right to vote, a basic fundamental right that we've been fighting for. One of the bills I pushed for was a resolution to end this insular cases, to stop this mistreatment of us as Virgin Islanders, and creating all these barriers to our economic, our social and political development. Is that we have to raise the understanding of history, raise the understanding of oppression, and use us as a tool, as a catapult to move us forward as a people. And the right that I encourage folks, like I said, to watch the movie Selma, but definitely watch that movie as well. And there's also one more book that I would suggest as well. There's another book I would suggest, and this particular book really to help you. And let me make sure I had let me pull it up. This book now, it's about, and the title is really a catchy title, because with this book now, let me pull it up. I want to give the full title because I call it the badass book. So it's the full name. It's You Are a Badass: How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero. So You Are a Badass: How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero. So definitely a good read as well. And you can even listen to the audio version if you're busy.
Love it. So. That's what I love about this show. I get to take notes, and I get to rewatch my own show, and that was really good. You have a 13-year-old son, Senator.
Yeah. Oh, he's 14 now. Yeah, he's 14 now.
14.
Now. Yeah, 14 now.
Time flies when you're having fun. Right?
Yes.
Off to college. What advice, nuggets, tips would you give to him, that young boy, that young girl out in the audience who wants to be an agent for change and make a positive impact in the Virgin Islands? What would you say to her right now?
Thank you. Well, to my own son and to all the children and to any young woman, also a young girl, and who pursue political office, I'll say to you, go pursue your passions, prepare yourself. And it's a humbling thing to give back. It's a humbling thing to serve your people. And the biggest thing you have to do this is with love for your community. And that's something that I was raised with, and I encourage that. So continue to, as young people, to shine through, prepare yourself, and be your best self. And so that's what I will say. Yes.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you, Senator. Thank you for making time for us today. Thank you for being on the Style Podcast show. How can we connect with you? How can we learn more? How can we continue on and connect with you and grow with you? Because the train has left the station, but it's not over yet. How can we connect?
Well, Marcus, I encourage everyone to definitely please subscribe to my website. That's GenevieveWhitaker.com. Thank you very much. I'm even pushing it. So thank you very much. Subscribe. I am on all the social platforms. I'm even on TikTok as of late. So yes, Twitter, Pinterest, just all over. I'm even on Snapchat. Like I joke with my son. It's like, yeah, I'm snapping too. And so just, please do. And I really encourage, especially my website, because that's where I'll continue to provide updates and also social media. That's Senator Whitaker. I do have also a campaign page as well. That's Friends and Supporters for Genevieve Whitaker, which I have separated from my Senate work. So thank you. And my email address also too that I'm sharing now. And I will also share my email address, and that's sent. So I have, of course, now my legislature email is closed. Now my new email address I'm sharing. You can hit me up at senatorwhitaker@gmail.com. That's where I'm filtering all of my constituent concerns, at senatorwhitaker@gmail.com. And you can send a message there. And I look forward to being in touch with you.
Love it.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really humbled by this opportunity. And thank you so much to Marcus. This is a great platform, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Thank you for being here. I go by Marcus. I go by Norman. It's okay. I love it. I answer to both. Thank you, Senator, for being here. I appreciate you making time for us again and giving back in this way. Thank you so much. And thank you, my audience, for being here. Thank you for spending time with me. This is fantastic. I am so pumped and so excited to deliver this message to you. And you guys can hear the answers that you all deserve from Senator herself. And as you can see, there's going to be change. She's going to work hard, and she's going to continue to work hard and give back. So I got to let you go. I got to let Senator run. She got many more courses to take. She got more certifications to get. She got more to do, right? But I love you guys. Thank you so much. Like I always end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always, always take care of business. This is Marcus, your favorite gentleman, and Senator Genevieve Whitaker of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Love you guys. Bye.